Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are really glad you're here with us today. We're tackling a topic today that, I have to be honest, usually scares people away.
Oh, for sure.
It's one of those subjects that feels like it belongs in a dimly lit room with people wearing tweed jackets and smoking pipes.
It definitely has a reputation. It's the kind of file that usually comes with a warning label. Danger. May cause existential dread.
Exactly. We are looking at a massive stack of research on German idealism. And I know the moment you hear those words, German idealism, the brain instinctively wants to shut down.
It does.
You picture dusty libraries, men in powdered wigs, and books that are so dense they could literally stop a bullet.
Mm-hmm.
But as we were going through these sources, parsing through the notes and the articles, it became pretty clear that this isn't just a history lesson.
Not at all. It's so much more alive than that.
It feels more like we're looking at the source code for the modern world,
Yeah.
like we're looking at the kernel of the operating system we're all using right now.
That is the best way to frame it. Think of German idealism not as a collection of old, dead ideas, but as the operating system that is currently running on your mental hardware.
I like that.
The concepts developed by these four thinkers, Kant, Fichte, Schelling, and Hegel, between the 1780s and the 1840s, are the root of how we talk about freedom, how we understand history, how we view nature, and even how we are currently debating things like artificial intelligence.
It's the why behind the what of modern life. It's the invisible architecture. But before we meet the cast of characters, we really have to set the scene.
We do.
Because this movement didn't just pop up out of a vacuum. These guys didn't just wake up one day and decide to complicate everything. There was a crisis happening in philosophy, right? A total meltdown.
It was a full-blown emergency. Immanuel Kant famously called it the scandal of philosophy.
The scandal, that sounds dramatic.
It was dramatic. To understand the scandal and to understand why these German thinkers matter, you have to realize that prior to the late 1700s, you had two deeply entrenched camps who basically hated each other's methods.
Who are the combatants?
On one side, you had the empiricists. These were mostly British thinkers like John Locke and David Hume.
And their vibe was basically, show me the data.
Exactly. Their motto was, if you can't touch it, smell it, or measure it, it's not real. They believed that the human mind is a blank slate, a tabula rasa at birth. We don't come in with any pre-installed software.
Nothing.
Knowledge comes exclusively from the senses. The world writes on you, and that's how you know things.
Which, to be fair, sounds pretty reasonable. That's the basis of modern science, isn't it? We observe, we measure, we conclude.
It is. But here is the trap, and this is where the scandal starts. If you take empiricism to its absolute logical conclusion, which David Hume did, you break reality. You break the ability to know anything for sure.
How so?
Hume argued that since we only experience specific moments, I see the sunrise today, I saw it rise yesterday, I actually have no proofs, no logical guarantee that it must rise tomorrow.
Wait, so he's saying we can't prove cause and effect?
Precisely. He argued that we don't see causality. We just see one thing happening and then another thing happening. We see a billiard ball hit another and the second one moves.
Right.
We assume the first caused the second to move, but we don't see the force of causality. We just see sequence, habit. So Hume led philosophy into total skepticism. He basically said we can't prove anything is real, consistent, or predictable. Science becomes just a game of probability based on habit.
That is unsettling. Okay, so that's one side. The empiricists have reasoned themselves into a hole where they can't even prove the sun will rise.
Mm-hmm.
Who was on the other side?
The rationalists. These were mostly continental thinkers like Descartes, Spinoza, and Leibniz. They looked at the messy, unreliable senses where sometimes a stick looks bent in water when it's straight, and they said, forget that. The senses are liars, reason is king.
So they went inward.
They believed you could prove the existence of God, the soul, and the fundamental structure of the universe just by sitting in a chair and thinking logically.
Like math.
Like geometry. You don't need to measure circles in the real world to know the properties of a circle, you just use reason.
Which sounds nice, it's very clean, but it feels a little disconnected.
It was a castle in the sky. You had empiricists stuck in the mud of skepticism, unable to prove anything definitively, and rationalists floating in clouds of pure logic, building elaborate systems that seemed completely disconnected from the actual world we live in.
So the bridge was broken.
The bridge between the mind and reality was broken. That was the scandal. We had no way to explain how our thoughts connected to the world.
And that is the starting gun for our deep dive today. We're going to look at how a specific group of German thinkers tried to rebuild that bridge, or maybe build a totally new kind of bridge. And looking at the outline of our sources, the best way to visualize this isn't as a boring lecture, but as a sport.
A relay race.
Right. This period, roughly from 1781 to the 1840s, is a high-stakes philosophical relay race. We have 4 main runners. Each one takes the baton, which is the question, how does the mind shape reality? Runs their lap as hard as they can, and then hands it off to the next person.
And usually the person taking the baton grabs it and says, hey, you ran the wrong way, or you dropped the most important part.
Exactly. It's a race of correction, critique, and expansion. So let's meet the team before the gun goes off. Who is on the starting block?
Lap 1 is Immanuel Kant. We're calling him the structural engineer. He's the one who draws the blueprints, sets the boundaries, and tells us what is safe to build.
Okay. Then who grabs the baton from him?
Lap 2 is Johann Gottlieb Fichte. He's the radical systematizer. He takes Kant's blueprints, tears them up in a rage, and says, forget the map, look at the map maker. He makes it all about the ego, the self, the I.
Intense guy. And lap 3?
Lap 3 is Friedrich Schelling. He's the nature mystic. He looks at Fichte's obsession with the self and says, you forgot about the rest of the universe, you forgot the stars and the trees. He brings nature back to life.
And bring it home?
The anchor leg. G.W.F. Hegel, the grand synthesizer. He realizes that the race itself, the history, the struggle, the process of passing the baton was the point all along.
This is going to be good. And for everyone listening, we are going to make a promise right now. No academic gibberish. We're going to avoid the $10 words where we can. We're sticking to the analogies in the text factories, flashlights, hurricanes, and acorns.
Deal. Let's keep it grounded.
All right, let's zoom in on leg 1, Immanuel Kant, the structural engineer. The notes here say he triggered a Copernican revolution in philosophy. Now, we know Copernicus. He's the guy who realized the Earth goes around the sun, not the other way around. That's a literal 180-degree flip of our perspective.
Yeah.
How does Kant do that with thoughts?
It's a massive claim, but he backs it up. Think about how philosophy worked before Kant. Philosophers asked, how does the human mind mirror the world?
Okay.
They assumed the world was this fixed, static object out there. Truth was sitting there like a rock, and the mind was just a passive mirror reflecting it. If the mirror was clear, you saw the truth. If the mirror was dirty or cracked, you were confused. The arrow of direction went from world to mind.
And Kant says this is wrong.
He flips the arrow. He asks, how must the world conform to the human mind?
How must the world conform to the mind? That sounds almost arrogant. Like he's saying we create reality just by looking at it.
Not that we create the stuff of reality. He's not saying you magically conjured that microphone in front of you just by thinking about it. He's not a wizard. But he is saying you create the structure of your experience.
The structure?
The best analogy to understand this, and the one that really clarifies his book, The Critique of Pure Reason, is the factory.
Okay, walk us through the factory. I like this visual.
Imagine your mind isn't a mirror. Imagine it is a high-tech processing plant. At the back of the building, you have the loading dock. This is where the raw materials come in. Kant calls this sensory intuition. It's light hitting your retina, sound waves hitting your eardrum, pressure on your skin.
But raw data is just chaos, isn't it? If I just had raw data, it would just be noise and flash.
Exactly. It would be what William James later called a blooming, buzzing confusion. It would be terrifying. But you, sitting here right now, you don't experience chaos. You experience a coherent world. You see a table, a chair, a person, a recording device. Everything is stable. Why?
Because the factory has machinery.
Because the factory has machinery.
Right.
And this factory has very specific assembly lines. Kant calls the first set of machinery space and time.
Now, this is the part that always trips me up. Space and time are assembly lines. I thought space and time were just the container the universe sits in, like the box the universe comes in.
That is the Kantian bombshell. That is the Copernican revolution. He argues that space and time are not things out there in the universe. They are the framework our mind uses to organize data.
Oh.
You literally cannot experience anything outside of space and time because that is how your factory is built. It's like wearing blue-tinted glasses that are surgically attached to your face. Everything you see looks blue. Is the world blue? No. But you can't take the glasses off.
So we don't open our eyes and discover that the world is in time. We project time onto the world so we can see it.
Exactly. If you didn't have the time software running in your brain, you wouldn't perceive change or sequence. It would all happen at once or not at all. Space and time are the forms of intuition. They are the first step on the assembly line.
That is wild. It makes you question everything you see. Okay, so the raw material goes down the space-time assembly line. It gets organized into here and there, before and after. Then what?
Then it gets hit by the molds. Kant calls these the categories. There are 12 of them, hardwired into the human mind. But the most important one for our discussion and for solving that scandal we talked about is causality, cause and effect.
This goes back to Hume, right? Hume said we can't see causality.
And Kant says, Hume, you're absolutely right. You can't see it out there. You see it because you put it there.
Oh, that's a great comeback.
It is. He says we don't discover cause and effect in nature. We bring the concept of cause and effect to nature so that nature makes sense to us. It's a mold we press onto the raw material.
So if I see a baseball hit a window and the window breaks, my mind is stamping cause-effect onto that sequence of events automatically.
Yes. It's what he calls a synthetic a priori judgment. It's knowledge we bring to the experience, not knowledge we get from it. Because we are human, we must experience the world as a chain of causes. This is how Kant saves science.
How does it save science?
Because science relies on the idea that laws of nature are consistent, Hume said we can't prove they are consistent out there. Kant says it doesn't matter if they are consistent out there. They are consistent in here, in the mind.
So science is really the study of the human mind.
In a way, yes. Science is valid not because it tells us about the mysterious universe independent of us, but because it describes how the human mind must experience the world. The laws of physics are, in a sense, the laws of our own mental operating system.
But there's a catch, isn't there? This feels like a good news, bad news situation.
It is a massive catch. The good news is science is saved. We can have objective knowledge. The bad news is we are trapped in the factory.
Because we never see the raw material.
Correct. We never see the world as it is. Kant makes a crucial distinction here between phenomena and noumena. Phenomena is the finished product, the world as it appears to us after going through the space-time assembly line and the causality molds. That's everything you have ever seen, touched, or loved.
And noumena.
Noumena is the thing in itself, the raw material before we touch it. The world as it truly is, independent of the human mind.
And the conclusion is?
We can never know the thing in itself. Never. It is physically and logically impossible. We are locked inside our own heads, in a way. We have objective knowledge for humans, but we don't have the God's eye view.
So we can't know ultimate reality.
We can know the map, but we can never see the territory.
So Kant turns the lights on, saves science, but then says, by the way, you can never go outside.
That's the structural engineer drawing the boundary. He says, here is the limit of human reason, do not cross. He puts a do not enter sign on reality itself. He creates an island of truth surrounded by an ocean of fog.
But he didn't stop at knowledge, right? I mean, this has huge implications for morality.
It does. And this is vital because if science is deterministic, if everything in the phenomenal world is just cause and effect like a machine, where is freedom? If my brain is just atoms hitting atoms, do I have a choice in what I say?
Right. If I'm just a product of the factory, I'm not free. I'm just a cog.
Kant says freedom cannot be found in the phenomena. In the scientific world, there is no freedom. So freedom must be in the noumenal world. It's in that realm we can't see but must assume exists. He splits the world in two. The world of science, determinism, and the world of morality, freedom.
And his moral system is famously rigid, the categorical imperative.
The universal law test. It's actually a logic test for behavior. Kant wants to base morality on reason, not on feeling good or empathy.
Give me the example. How does the logic test work?
The classic one is lying. Let's say you want to lie on a job application to get hired. You ask yourself, can I will lives that everyone should do this?
If everyone lied on their resume, resumes would mean nothing, employers wouldn't even read them, the whole concept of resume would dissolve.
Exactly. The whole system of hiring would collapse. Therefore, lying is irrational. It's a self-contradiction. You are trying to make an exception for yourself while relying on the rule that everyone else tells the truth. Kant says morality is about being rational and treating others as ends in themselves, never just as tools for your own gain.
So Kant leaves us with a safe, orderly world. We have science within the boundaries of phenomena, and we have faith and freedom outside the boundaries in the noumenal. It seems pretty solid, a nice, tidy separation.
It was solid. It was brilliant. It dominated philosophy. But remember, this is a relay race. And the next runner is looking at Kant's map, specifically at that thing in itself, that noumena, and he is getting annoyed.
Enter Johann Gottlieb Fichte, lap 2.
Fichte is the radical systematizer. He takes the baton and immediately spots a crack in Kant's foundation. He looks at the thing in itself, this mysterious reality that causes our sensations but which we can never know, and he says, this is garbage.
Why? That seems harsh. Kant just saved science.
Fichte argues that the thing in itself is a ghost in the machine. Think about it. Kant says the thing in itself exists outside of our consciousness. But Fichte points out a logical flaw. The moment you think about the thing in itself, the moment you talk about it, it is now an object in your consciousness.
Oh, that's a brain twister. So even by saying there is something I can't think of, I am thinking of it.
Precisely. You are bringing it into your mind. Fichte says you cannot step outside your own mind to check if your mind is accurate. There is no exit. So if we can't know the thing in itself and we can't even think it without contradicting ourselves, we should just get rid of it.
So he eliminates the outside world. That sounds insane. If he eliminates the raw material, what is left? If there is no stuff coming into the factory, where does the world come from?
In a way, yes, he eliminates the idea that the world starts out there and comes in here. He says everything starts with the I, the self.
This sounds solipsistic. Like, I am the only thing that exists.
Is he saying I imagined the podcast mic? Is he saying I imagined you?
It sounds that way, and he was accused of that in his time. But Fichte is deeper than that. He isn't talking about your personal psychological ego like Deve's ego or Sarah's ego. He's talking about the absolute structure of self-consciousness, the absolute I. He uses the concept of positing.
Positing, that's a key term in the notes. It sounds technical. What does it actually mean? It comes from the German Setzen. It means to put in place or to construct. To help us understand this, let's use the analogy of the flashlight.
The flashlight analogy, let's hear it.
Imagine a pitch black room, absolute void. Nothing exists for you. Then you turn on a flashlight. The beam of light does two things simultaneously. First, it illuminates whatever it hits, but second, and more importantly, the light reveals itself. You can't have the illuminated object without the light.
Okay, that makes sense. The light is the condition for seeing anything.
For Fichte, the I is the flashlight. The I isn't a thing sitting in your brain like a marble, it's an act. It's the act of turning on. When the I becomes self-aware, it creates itself. But, and here's the twist, a flashlight needs something to shine on.
Right.
Light passing through empty space is invisible. If you shine a laser pointer into the night sky, you don't see the beam unless it hits dust or fog. It only becomes visible when it hits an obstacle.
So the I needs an object to see itself.
Yes. This is the crucial move. Fichte says the I posits the not I. The self creates the non-self, the world, nature, obstacles, just so it has something to experience itself against.
Wait, so the entire physical universe, trees, mountains, my coffee cup, is just a prop created by the ego so it can feel like it exists?
In Fichte's system, yes. The not I is posited as a necessary obstacle. The world is there for us. This brings us to the muscle analogy, which helps explain the why. Why would we create a world full of hard, stubborn things?
The muscle analogy. Break down.
Think about a muscle. If a muscle has no resistance, no gravity, no weights to lift, what happens?
It atrophies, it gets weak, it basically turns to jello.
It effectively ceases to be a muscle. A muscle is its ability to contract against force. To grow, to define itself, it needs resistance.
So the world is the gym.
Exactly. The not I is the weights. We face resistance, physical limits, difficult tasks, moral dilemmas, and by striving against them, the I develops. This is the core of Fichte's ethics. Streben.
Striving, that's a powerful word. Sounds very German.
It is the ultimate romantic ideal. The goal of life isn't to reach the finish line and relax on a beach. The goal is the struggle itself. You are defined by what you overcome.
So problems are features, not bugs.
Struggles aren't mistakes. They are the necessary resistance required for the self to exist. If you had no problems, you wouldn't be a person. You'd be a flat line. You'd be invisible light in a vacuum.
That's actually really motivating. It reframes problems, not as things that shouldn't be happening, but as necessary friction. It's like, thank you, problem, for letting me exist.
Exactly. It turns the passive victim into the active hero.
But Fichte didn't just stop at the individual, did he? Because if I'm just creating the world to lift weights, what about you? Are you just a weight for me to lift? Or are you just a not I?
This is one of his most brilliant contributions. He realized that if I treat everyone else as just not I, as just objects, then I'm alone in the universe. I'm a god in an empty room. He asked, how do I know I'm a free being?
Right.
He argued that I can only recognize myself as free if I see another free being treating me as free.
The recognition argument.
Right. A rock doesn't recognize me. A tree doesn't recognize me. I need another I. I need a mirror that looks back. But for us to coexist, for me to recognize you as free, I have to limit my own freedom. I can't just treat you like a rock. I have to create a space for you.
So freedom isn't absolute.
Freedom is mutual restriction. I limit myself so you can be free, and you limit yourself so I can be free. Freedom isn't doing whatever I want in a void. It's a mutual agreement between rational beings.
That sounds like the basis of a democratic society.
It is. It's the philosophical foundation of rights. Rights aren't given by nature. Nature doesn't care about your rights. A tiger will eat you. Rights are created by this mutual recognition between people. We summon each other to be free.
So Fichte has taken us from Kant's factory, where we are passive observers of a structured world, to a gym, where we are active creators striving against resistance.
He has empowered the subject. The I is the center of the universe. He's torn up Kant's map and said, I am the map maker, but there is a problem.
There's always a problem. That's why we have Lab 3.
Friedrich Schelling is watching Fichte run this lab, and he is shaking his head. He was actually Fichte's student for a while, but then he turned on him.
What was his issue?
He looks at Fichte's gym, where nature is nothing but a dead weight, a not I, just there to be pushed around, and he says, you have missed half the story.
This is Schelling, the nature mystic.
Schelling says, look, Fichte, you can't just explain nature as a not I. Have you ever looked at a forest? Have you ever seen a storm? Nature is alive. Nature creates. Nature evolves.
He wants to re-enchant the world. Fichte made the world into a dead stage prop, and Schelling wants to give it a soul.
He flips the script. Fichte asked, how does the ego create nature? Schelling asks, how did nature create the ego?
Ooh, that's a good pivot.
He famously says, nature is visible spirit, and spirit is invisible nature.
Nature is visible spirit. That's a beautiful phrase. What does it actually mean?
It means they are the same thing, just at different stages of development. Think of the universe as one giant, developing organism. In a rock, the spirit is asleep. It's just heavy, static, bound by gravity. Okay. In a plant, it's dreaming, it grows, it seeks light, it has a basic drive. In an animal, it's waking up. It has sensation, movement, desire. And in a human.
In a human, nature opens its eyes.
Exactly. In a human, nature finally becomes self-conscious. So when you look at a tree, you aren't looking at a not I. You are looking at a younger version of yourself. You are looking at your own history.
So we aren't strangers in the universe looking at it from the outside.
Yeah.
We are the universe looking at itself.
Precisely. We are nature's way of thinking. This overcomes that alienation of the I versus the not I that Fichte had. We aren't fighting nature, we are the blossoming of nature.
He used an analogy about forces to explain how nature works, right? The hurricane?
Yes. Schelling was fascinated by the science of his time, electricity, magnetism, chemistry. He saw that nature always works through opposing forces, expansion and contraction.
The potencies.
Right. Think of a hurricane. Is a hurricane a solid object? Can you pick it up and put it in a box?
No, it's wind, it's movement, it's an event.
It's a balance of forces. You have low pressure sucking in, that's attraction or contraction, and you have high pressure pushing out, that's repulsion or expansion. The structure of the storm, the eye, the wall, is just the dynamic equilibrium of these forces fighting each other. Schelling says everything is like this. Matter itself is just forces held in balance.
Wow.
A rock is just forces moving so fast they look still.
That sounds like modern physics. E, MC2. Matter is energy.
It's very close, and he applies this to the mind too. A thought is a structure held in balance. A society is a structure held in balance. It's the same pattern everywhere. This leads to his identity system. A equals
A.
Subject and object are two sides of the same coin. He uses the lens analogy. Imagine a curved lens. One side is convex, bulging out. The other is concave, caving in. They are opposite shapes. They look totally different.
Right.
But it's the same piece of glass. You can't have one without the other. Mind, subject, and nature, object, are just the concave and convex sides of the absolute.
That is a very different vibe from Fichte's struggle.
Yeah.
Fichte was all about fighting the resistance, sweating in the gym. Schelling feels more like harmony.
It is harmony, it's integration. And because Schelling believes the unconscious forces of nature and the conscious forces of mind are the same, he thinks the highest human activity isn't philosophy. Philosophy is just thinking, which is conscious. He thinks the highest activity is art.
Art. Why art?
Because in art, the conscious and the unconscious fuse. Think about a genius artist or musician. Think about Beethoven. He has conscious technique, he practices scales, he knows music theory, he knows how to hold the pen. That's the conscious part. But then inspiration strikes, the muse.
The part they can't explain.
Right, something flows through them that they didn't fully plan. They're surprised by their own creation.
Like being in the flow state.
Exactly, that flow state is the unconscious nature working through them. When you look at a great piece of art, Schelling says you are seeing the absolute. You are seeing the perfect union of the natural and the spiritual. For Schelling, the artist is the high priest of humanity. The artist reveals what the philosopher can only talk about.
So we've gone from the factory Kant to the gym Fichte to the art gallery Schelling. We have nature and spirit united. It feels like we could stop here. It's a nice ending. We are one with nature, creating art. Why do we need a fourth runner?
It is a nice ending. The Romantics loved Schelling. Poets like Goethe and Coleridge were all about this. But there is one more runner waiting, and he is the heavyweight champion of this entire era. He looks at Schelling and says, "That's beautiful, but it's a little fuzzy, it's a little indeterminate."
G.W.F. Hegel, the anchor.
Hegel looks at the previous three. He sees Kant's factory boundaries. He sees Fichte's striving ego. He sees Schelling's nature mysticism. And he says, you are all right, but you are all just moments in a bigger process.
Moments. That's a very Hegelian word.
It is. Hegel's big shift is that the truth isn't a thing. It's not a nugget you find. It's not a static map, Kant, or a static unity, Schelling. The truth is the history. It is the process of becoming.
He uses the acorn and the oak analogy here. Explain that one.
This is the best way to get Hegel. Imagine I hand you an acorn and ask, is this an oak tree?
I'd say potentially.
Yeah.
But looking at it right now, no, it's just a nut.
Right, but for the acorn to become an oak, what has to happen to it?
It has to go into the ground. It has to break apart. It basically has to die.
Exactly. The acorn is negated. It is destroyed to send out a sprout. And then the sprout becomes a sapling, negating the sprout. Then the sapling becomes the tree.
So where is the truth of the oak tree? Is it the acorn, the sapling, the timber?
The truth is the whole life cycle. You can't understand the oak unless you understand the process of its development, including the death of the acorn. Hegel says reality, spirit or Geist, is the same. It's not a static object sitting there waiting to be found. It is coming to know itself through human history. History is the growing of the tree.
So history isn't just one damn thing after another. It's not just random kings and wars. It's going somewhere.
Yes. It is the autobiography of God, or spirit. It is the universe learning what it is. This brings us to the famous or infamous dialectical engine, the engine of this change.
Now, everyone learns thesis, antithesis, synthesis in school. Is that what we're talking about?
We have to be careful. Hegel rarely used those exact terms. That was actually Fichte who used them more. But the concept stands as a teaching tool. But don't think of it as a mechanical formula like math. Think of it as an organic movement, like a heartbeat.
How does it work?
An idea, thesis, is proposed or established, but every finite idea has a flaw or a limit. Eventually, if you push that idea to its limit, it hits a contradiction. It generates its own opposite, antithesis.
Can you give us a concrete example from history? Hegel loved history.
Let's look at absolute freedom, which was the ideal of the French Revolution. That's the thesis. We will destroy all institutions, kill the king, abolish the church, and just have pure, unadulterated freedom.
Sounds great on paper. Liberty, equality, fraternity, the ultimate liberation.
But what happened in reality? It led to the terror. If you have absolute freedom with no structure, you have chaos. Everyone is suspect. The guillotine runs nonstop. Freedom flipped into its opposite, total tyranny and fear. That's the antithesis. The thesis actually created the antithesis.
So how do you solve it? You can't just go back to the monarchy.
No, you can't go back. The acorn can't go back into the shell. You move forward to a synthesis. You get constitutional freedom. You have freedom, but it is defined and protected by laws and institutions. You keep the good part of the thesis, liberty, and resolve the contradiction of the antithesis, chaos.
Then that synthesis becomes the new thesis and the process starts all over again.
Exactly. History is this spiraling ladder. We make mistakes, we swing to extremes, and we integrate the lessons to move higher. Conflict isn't bad. Conflict is the engine of progress. You need the antithesis. You need the pain to grow.
There is a specific story Hegel tells about this conflict that is super famous, the master-slave dialectic.
This is the centerpiece of his book, Phenomenology of Spirit. It's a story about two self-conscious beings meeting for the first time in the wild.
Like in Fichte's recognition.
Yes, but Hegel makes it a fight to the death. They both want to be the essential one. They want to prove they are superior to life itself, so they fight. Eventually, one gets scared of death and surrenders. He chooses life over freedom. He becomes the slave, or bondsman. The winner, who risked everything, becomes the master.
So the master wins, game over. The master is the hero.
That's the twist. That's the dialectic. The master thinks he won. He sits back, lazy, and consumes what the slave produces. But think about it. The master only gets recognition from a slave, someone he doesn't respect. That's worthless recognition.
So he's praised by a robot.
Exactly. And because he just consumes, he stops growing. He becomes dependent on the slave for his food, his clothes, everything. He's not truly free. He's stuck. He becomes a soft, dependent aristocrat.
And the slave.
The slave is forced to work. He has to deal with the resistance of nature. Remember Fichte's muscle. He has to be disciplined. He shapes the world with his labor. Through work, the slave looks at the field he plowed or the house he built, and he sees his own mind reflected in the world. He realizes, I made this. My mind is now in the world.
He gains self-consciousness.
Yes, he develops true self-consciousness and discipline. So, historically, the future belongs to the slave. History moves through the worker, the one who struggles, not the aristocrat who sits on the throne.
That is a powerful idea. I can see why Marx picked up on that one later.
It's revolutionary. It turns the social hierarchy upside down, and it leads to Hegel's view on institutions, because the slave eventually realizes he needs a society that respects his work.
Right, because usually we think of institutions, the government, the family, the church, as things that limit our freedom. The man is keeping me down.
Hegel says the opposite. He says, freedom is not being left alone. That's negative freedom. That's the freedom of a drifting astronaut. You're free from gravity, but you can't do anything. You are just floating in void.
What is true freedom then?
True freedom is being at home in rational institutions. He uses the fish and water idea. A fish isn't free if you pull it out of the water to liberate it from the ocean. It dies.
It can't breathe.
It's free when it swims well within the water.
So we are free when we have a good family structure, a fair legal system, a functioning economy. These are the water that supports our freedom.
Yes, we find our identity within them. You aren't just an abstract human. You are a father, a citizen, a podcast host. These roles give content to your freedom. They give you something to be free about.
So we've finished the race. We started with Kant drawing the factory blueprints and saving science. Fichte turned on the flashlight and started working out in the gym of the not-I. Schelling took us for a hike in the living forest where nature is visible spirit. And Hegel showed us that the whole trip was a movie that makes sense only when you watch the whole thing, credits and all.
That is the German idealism relay race. It's a journey from we can't know reality to we are reality coming to know itself.
But the big question we always ask on the deep dive is, so what? Why does this matter to the listener driving to work in 2026? Why should they care about 18th century Germans with difficult names?
It matters because these guys were grappling with the relationship between mind and world, and that relationship is currently under a lot of stress.
Let's talk AI. That's the big elephant in the room.
This is the Fichte-Kant question. We are building machines that process data massive factories in the Kantian sense. They have assembly lines. But do they have a not-I? Does an AI strive?
Right. An AI doesn't care if it gets the answer right. It doesn't have skin in the game. It doesn't fear death or being turned off, unless we program it to pretend to.
Fichte would say, if it doesn't posit its own goals and meet resistance, it's not intelligence, it's just a calculator. And Kant would ask, does the AI have categories? Does it understand cause and effect, or is it just predicting the next word based on probability?
It suggests we might be looking for consciousness in the wrong place. We're looking for processing power, but we should be looking for striving. We should be looking for the muscle.
Exactly. Intelligence might require a body, vulnerability, and struggle. A mind without a world to push against might not be a mind at all.
What about the climate crisis?
That is pure Schelling. For 200 years, we treated nature as Fichte's not-I dead stuff to be used, obstacles to be overcome. We conquered nature. We treated the earth like a gas station.
And now nature is fighting back. The hurricane is getting bigger.
Because, as Schelling said, nature is alive. It's a system of forces. If you push the expansion too hard, the contraction snaps back. We need to shift from a Fichtean view, conquest, to a Schellingian view, participation. We are part of the organism, not the masters of it. If we kill the host, we die.
And on a personal level, mental health, anxiety, we have a lot of that going around.
I think Fichte and Hegel are very comforting here. We live in a culture that tries to eliminate friction. We want everything easy, instant, seamless. We want the app to do it for us. We want a life without problems.
But Fichte says fiction is the whole point.
If you remove the resistance, you remove the self. Your struggles, your bad days, your conflicts, those aren't mistakes in the code. That is the weight training for your soul. You need the weights.
And Hegel adds the time dimension.
Right. Hegel tells us, Trust the process. You might be in an antithesis moment right now. Things might feel chaotic or broken. You might have just lost your job or ended a relationship. But that contradiction is necessary to push you to the synthesis, the higher level of understanding.
It's a necessary part of the story.
You don't solve life. You develop through it.
That is a great perspective. It stops you from panicking when things go wrong.
Yeah.
You just ask, okay, what's the synthesis here? What am I learning?
Exactly. It turns suffering into meaning.
And finally, politics. We seem pretty polarized these days.
We are stuck in the thesis versus antithesis phase. We are shouting at each other. Hegel would say we need to find the rational synthesis that preserves the truth of both sides. And Fichte would remind us, you cannot be free if you are trying to destroy the other side. You need them to recognize you.
Limit your freedom so others can be free alongside you.
It's the only way it works. If you destroy the other, you destroy the mirror you need to see yourself.
This has been an incredible lap around the track.
It's a dense topic, but once you see the patterns, you see them everywhere.
So here is the final thought to chew on. German idealism teaches us that we are not passive observers. We aren't just cameras taking photos of a world that's already there.
We are projectors. We are projecting the movie.
That's the challenge. Look at a problem in your life right now. Are you treating it as a thing that just happened to you? Or can you flip the switch and see it as necessary resistance for your own development? Are you the victim of the factory, or are you the light in the dark room?
That's the question.
Thanks for running the race with us. Keep diving deep.
See you next time.